good evening, family. Welcome to another edition of Thorough Black Talk with your sister Keisha, your brother Tad, and your brother Ashe SJ. Will be joining us shortly along with our weekly correspondents, Sister Marcia and Brother Blacksmith on the check-in. We were scheduled to have Brother Razakhan on this evening, but due to some technical difficulties, we're going to have to reschedule. And that's no problem. We just keep moving, right? We keep moving. So, peace to Brother Razakhan and Sister Pam, Africa, um, because we want them to give us a little insight on what's happening with Brother Mumia Abu Jamal. It seems to be some shenanigans again going on in the case. And so, just to get, our audience, those who may not be familiar with Brother Mumia Abu Jamal or Brother Razakhan, I'm gonna play a little clip a little later, and just to give you an intro so that y'all ready for when he comes on. Again, Brother Razakhan had to reschedule due to some technical difficulties, and we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it do what it do. I wish to say happy Mother's Day, belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Shout out to each and every one of y'all. I hope you enjoyed your Mother's Day. Um, and I hope you got to spend it, in have peace of mind. Being a mom, your brain really never turns off. So I hope you were able to relax, take it easy, and just reflect, on what it is to be a natural woman who produces children, because so many shenanigans are going on out here in the world, and you know, it's almost criminal now to declare yourself to be a natural woman. That's and I find that extremely disturbing. I know most of you find that disturbing. And unfortunately, lawmakers have made it so where certain groups are a protected class and can claim discrimination or hate crime if you disagree. Um, so we're gonna look at some of that tonight as well. Shout out to the BK William Macri History Club. They had Dr. Arthur Lewis on the check-in last night. Powerful, powerful lecture. Um, Once the broadcast is finished here, I will repost that for y'all on the Thorough Black Talk Facebook page so you can watch it at your leisure. And I will hope that you like and subscribe to the BK William Mackey Jr. History Club YouTube channel. And stay, abreast of what's happening, still educating, still teaching. Thanks to Brother Ray Ray and the club, educating our community and taking up the mantle of the greats. This is the legacy that Brother Ray Ray comes from. So, kudos to him. And again, you don't want to miss these great lectures that he has Zoom live every other Wednesday. And so if you want to stay abreast with that, we got you covered. We got you covered. Shout out to Brother Peace. Brother Peace on the check-in. What's good with you, Brother Peace? Hope all is well with you and yours, my big brother. Sister Farnessa on the check-in. A BB Fahodier family of BB Fahodier. It's almost criminal now to holler out the worrying cry right now. It's so much of a need to cancel anyone in disagreement with the status quo. And it comes from entities that propose to be free thinking people, but their behaviors are something else. But I want to again wish you all a belated happy Mother's Day. And I hope you enjoyed that day. For those of us who mothers have transitioned, I hope you found some peace and were able to talk to your spirit God, who should be your God at this present time, the one who gave you life. So I hope you found some peace in that, because I know it is difficult to do when you don't have your mom in the physical realm. It is a challenge for all of us who have mothers who have transitioned. But things are still happening in the news. Again, here we go with these Karens out here. Another, you know, brother going about his day, minding his business, traveling about the city as he chose to, which was via an electric bike that he rented from City Bike. Went to get his bike, paid for the bike, and here come a Karen, you know, causing a scene, acting a fool, trying to draw attention to an alleged theft, to an alleged harm. But again, it is the power structure that has put a battery in the back of these Karens. You remember a little while ago, there was a young brother staying at a hotel with his father, who was a jazz musician, at a hotel in Lower Manhattan. And a Karen came up to him and accused him of stealing her iPhone. Video showed that she was lying. But again, prosecution of this lie was mild. There was no vigor in the prosecution. The hindrance of these Karens to keep doing what they're doing. Before that, there was a woman in Brooklyn, New York, young brother, a young child, on his way to school, stops into a store with his mother, and the woman brushes up against his knapsack, and she accused him of sexual assault. Then you had the brother who was bird watching in Central Park. Karen comes along and causes a scene and, pretend that he's attacking her. But, these politicians, when they give these folks a slap on the wrist, pretty much put a battery in their back and give them autonomy to do whatever they wish. These light, you know, attempts at justice are harmful to us, harmful to us in every way. The psychology of you can't travel, you can't just be in the cities and the states that you're in, that you pay to live in, without being harassed. But again, it happened. A nurse of Bellevue Hospital here in Manhattan. Let me just play the video. Hold on, family. And I know y'all seen it. We'll come back.
Help me! Please help me!
It's not your bike.
Please help me!
It's not your bike. It's not your bike.
Please help me! Help! Please get off me!
Wait, what the f going on, bro?
Yo, don't take it, bro.
Now you're not getting the bike, bro.
Man, now you're not getting the bike.
Help!
You're not getting
Get
the
off
bike.
me!
I'm not. No,
Why you took his phone?
stupid.
What's wrong with you?
Stupid as something. You're
Don't
not
touch
touching
his
my
phone.
phone.
Do not touch his phone.
I'm not touching you. You put your stomach on my hand.
But dude, stop. No, dude, stop. No. I said no. I said sit down.
Please help me!
She's just crying.
You're not crying. You're not crying. I got
Stupid.
I got you
My
on video.
bike.
Where you put it out? Hey, Hassan, you put it out? Hassan. Hassan, you put it out?
This is my bike. It's on my account. Please move.
All right, so why don't we reset the bike?
I'm not resetting the bike.
It's his. It's his. It's his.
Reset it. I'm gonna throw it out on your account.
How you stop crying? Not a tear came down, miss. Not a tear came down.
I mean, these are the shenanigans that's going on. This is the craziness that's going on. This is the craziness that's going on. But, we've said here many, many times that, this white aggressionist movement is on the rise. And it seems that everybody and their mother is a protected class except for Black people. Any and everybody can do anything to Black people. You just had the murder of Jordan Neely, um, you know, take place on a New York City subway. Um, Now you have his murderer legal team saying that, he was defending, strap hangers, defending riders, but there was no assault to any riders. There was conversation, there was an attempt to get something to eat from some of the riders. Video shows that. And if Jordan Neely was the aggressor, why is it that Daniel Penny attack him from behind? Why do they attack him from behind if that is the case? But it's not. And it seems that everybody is getting a slap on the wrist. And, I don't know for all of you who live outside of New York City, but it's crazy out here. It is crazy out here. We have so much going on. You have busloads and busloads of migrants that are pulling into the city. And, people are getting fed up. Now they're housing them in the gymnasiums of schools. I mean, this is crazy, but they don't seem to be sending these migrants to Millionaires Row. They don't send them over there by Central Park West. They don't send them over there. They send them in other neighborhoods. And now you have various counties outside of New York City who are protesting and have taken the city to court to get these migrants removed. As far as places in Long Island, people are getting frustrated. You have parents here in the city who are protesting, saying, we don't know where these people come from, and you want them to be in a gymnasium where our children attend school. All of a sudden, the city can find housing for illegal migrants, but you have a homeless crisis here in this city. Homeless has grown over the last homelessness, has grown over the last 10 years here in this city. The cost of living is ridiculous here. It has been reported that, the average apartment cost here in the city is over $4,500. This is crazy. So homelessness is on a rise. You have no money and no place to put citizens who are losing their dwellings, but you have money and you have places where you can house illegal migrants. Now, on top of that, you have a movement afoot as far as reparations is concerned for Black people. No money for us, but you got money and you got the ability to house migrants. And now Mayor Adams of New York City is pushing back to the federal government, or yet it seems he's pushing back towards the federal government, saying he needs more funding. Well, you should have realized that when you open your fat mouth, you along with former Mayor de Blasio. And everybody knows that Bloomberg is still running this city. However, this is what's happening here. But I have to ask the voters, are you going to continue to vote for the lesser of two evils at the detriment of your own? You have to ask yourselves these questions. Then you have the scandal on the right with the with this Congressman Santos. Now you have ethics committees want to, investigate and get rid of him. He's no different than the president. The president lied about his platform, where he came from, what he's about. So it is, the corruption and the shenanigans is embedded in the fabric of this country. And I just want us to be a little bit smarter and wiser in our approach to how we deal with our problems here in this country, because nothing is getting better. At least from my eyes, nothing is getting better. Things are getting worse out here. And now, you can forget about being a second or third or fourth class citizen. Hell, mosquitoes got more rights than Black folks here in the city of New York and also around the state. I saw a meeting with Governor Kathy Hochul at the White House. This is just political theater. And every time I see, I don't know if y'all realize this, but every time I see Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul together, it just looks at what's that movie, Get Out. He in a sunken place and she's stirring the tea. That's the way it looks to me. But something's got to be done. Something's got to be done, family. So I would hope that the voters here in the city become a little bit more wiser in their approach, because we need more. Now, again, they have money to house migrants in schools and abandoned hotels, or at least that's what is reported to be, abandoned hotels and city buildings. But you can't deal with the crisis of racism in the education system. It's been reported. Studies have shown that Caucasian teachers look at our children, especially black boys, as a threat, as a waste of time, and a whole lot of other things. And these things have to be looked at. But I'm going to show y'all a clip. You don't got to listen to me. Let's look at the study. Okay, hold on, family. Here we go.
Take a look at these 4 kids. These preschool teachers watched a video of them playing for a 2016 study. The study asked them to press the enter key every time they saw a behavior that could become a potential challenge. But the thing about the study is it's kind of deceptive. There's actually no misbehavior in the video. The kids are actors, and the researchers were using eye tracking software because what they really wanted to know was, when teachers expect misbehavior, who are they watching? The study found that both white and black teachers spent more time gazing at black boys than other children. Black boys make up less than a quarter of the nation's preschoolers, but more than 40% of preschool suspensions. The study's lead researcher told the Washington Post that implicit biases don't begin with black men and police. They begin with black preschoolers and their teachers, if not earlier. Take a look at these 4 kids.
This is a crisis. But you have no money to give to independent black schools who can help deal with this situation. News commentary and media profiles like this just come like a burp in the wind. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. No money for that. No money to give to independent black schools, even though we pay the tax dollars and it can be done. And it should be done based on No Child Left Behind. You got so many teachers who lost their jobs because they refused to be vaccinated, who are suffering out here financially. Black teachers, because they refuse to be vaccinated. What about them? Brother P said, America is importing outsiders to replace us in housing, education, employment, and other resources. They are going to use these people to vote against us. Thus, we are pushing us farther back. I think they're pushing us farther back. That's what he means. Eric Adams is a tool of the system to fool us into thinking we are making progress. They always have money and resources for everyone else except us. Absolutely, Brother Peace. And I have to, say, why do we keep playing the game? Why do we keep playing the game? For what reason? We continue to lose. Conditions are getting worse. And yet, you have media commentary, folks like Joy Reid on MSNBC telling you got to get out and vote. For what? Are you crazy? I don't know. Sister Pat said black folks need to have a day of absence. Douglas T. Ward on election day. Absolutely. A day of absence. Start with Black Solidarity Day the Monday before. Don't buy nothing. Don't spend no money that you don't have to spend. If it's not for, household essentials or medicine or anything like that, you shouldn't be spending your money. We got to push back against the system some way, somehow. We can't continue to allow these things to take place, because now we're at a critical moment. I want to show, also, let me see. Sorry about that, family. Also, you have a lot of black parents who are also pushing against this and saying, you shut down city programs for us, but you open it up for everybody else. This is the shenanigans we got going on here, family. This is crazy.
Slap in the face that we as citizens of the United States of America do not have the resources and support, but you're going to bring people who are not citizens here in our community, in our buildings that we pay taxes for, that you took away from us. Yes. That is completely unacceptable. We slap in the face that we as citizens of the United States of America do not have the resources and support, but you're going to bring people who are not citizens here in our community, in our buildings that we pay taxes for, that you took away from us.
Now, notice too on these news media clips, they always showing brown folks.
A growing number of Chinese migrants are crossing into the United States from Mexico without visas, taking irregular overland routes across Latin America.
Where these people going? Where they going? Where are they being housed at? I told you, over 100 people from over 120 countries. This has been reported by the city. Over 120 countries. Where these people going at?
Over the course of 3 weeks, Reuters witnessed hundreds of Chinese nationals along an isolated border stretch in southeastern Texas. Reuters interviewed more than 24 of them. All of those interviewed said they got the idea to take the land route on social media and drew on influencers, private groups, and comments to plan their trips.
Now, it says they learned from social media how to go through the border. Now you have the state of Montana, who has just declared, beginning in 2024, I believe, that TikTok is banned in the state of Montana. Let's find out why.
Go here, the police here, I think they are very kind, and that's the America in my head.
A growing number of Chinese migrants are crossing into the United States from Mexico without visas, taking irregular overland routes across Latin America.
Now, remember before we talked about these anchor babies. These folks coming in, having children here, and their children become citizens. Thereby, these parents get to stay here in the country, bypassing the traditional route of citizenship that a lot of black people come from black countries have to go through. There is a holding cell in Lower Manhattan, a holding bin rather, in Lower Manhattan on Varick Street for trolls. That's people traveling without visas being returned. You know what the complexion of them people are? They look like you and me. But meanwhile, you got Congressional Black Caucus dancing a jig. While black people are in crisis, they out here dancing a jig. Look at Congress. This is your Congress. This is your Congress while we out here suffering. This is your Congress. Black people is catching all kind of hell. You got a crisis where black women are missing. Nobody's talking about them. Where these black women at? Why they down there dancing a jig? Hold on, family.
Years. She was last seen December 22nd in River Rouge, Michigan. The day she was last seen, she borrowed her daughter's car to go to an appointment. But Jennifer never made it to that appointment. Her daughter's car that she had been driving that day was later found on the block where her ex-husband lived. But Jennifer was never seen again. When we first covered Jennifer's story, it had only been 3 months since she disappeared. But sadly, there has been no new information, and it is now over 2 years since Jennifer was last seen. Jennifer is a mother. She has 4 children, and for the past 2 years, they have had to be without her. This story needs your attention, so please share the details of Jennifer's disappearance. 2 years is too long, and Jennifer's family deserves answers.
We are in crisis, and nobody cares. You rarely hear on media, mainstream media that is, about missing Black women and Black girls. We are in crisis. We are attacked racially. We are attacked socially. Education is down the tubes. Homelessness is at an all-time high. Mental illness is at an all-time high. And they down there dancing a jig. But again, I have to ask, why do folks keep voting for them? Why do you keep doing it? Why? I don't get it, family. I don't get it. Another beautiful sister missing. Nobody cares.
In October 2017, Darian Hudson disappeared from Stillwater, Oklahoma. 5.5 years later, she is still missing. In the months prior to her disappearance, Darian had been experiencing some of life's hardships, but things were starting to look up, and Darian was making plans for the future. On October 21st, 2017, Darian spoke with her mom on the phone and told her about how she planned to move back to Wichita and enroll in nursing school. But she never spoke to her daughter again. A few days later, she started getting calls and texts from Darian's friends telling her that Darian was missing. She hadn't shown up for her shift at Chili's, and none of her friends or coworkers had seen her or spoken to her. When her family went to Stillwater to look for Darian, her apartment door was open and the lights were on, but there was no sign of Darian. 5.5 years later, Darian Hudson is still missing. So please, share Darian's story because her family also needs answers.
Again, nobody cares when it comes to us. We are at crisis. We are at crisis. Unemployment is at a high. And now they're trying to push another identity down your throat. Why are they trying to do this? Why are they trying to get you, especially, our sisters who suffer with chronic illness, to tell you that the older you get, the less likely you'll be able to survive, that you won't make it. When you have proof of Black women who are reversing the health crisis, Black men who are reversing the health crisis, but these things you don't see. Nobody cares to talk about. They keep pushing the migrant crisis down your throat. We are in crisis. We got to worry about our crisis. Drugs is at an all-time high. These people, I know it is in Philly. I know what it is in Baltimore, and I definitely know what it is in New York. These people out here on this Trank stuff, it's scary out here. And we live in these liberal cities that want to prevent you from carrying firearms to protect yourselves. But you can't protect yourself. Hold on, family, because y'all got to see this craziness. Y'all got to see this craziness. And I want y'all to be safe out here. Please, family, be safe out here. Check this out. Hold on. Let me pull this up. Because this is nuts. Look at this.
Whoa! 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 Whoa!
That's some crazy high right there. That's some crazy high right there. Now, I don't know If y'all in New York and you've been in Midtown Manhattan lately, where a lot of these migrants are being let off, literally they roaming around the city. If you go up there, near Times Square area, they just roaming around the city. Drug abuse is at an all-time high. We are in crisis. You got white folks murdering us for no reason, police murdering us, bad health food choices murdering us. You got a system that's trying to push an alternative death style on you. I was looking at a report the other day and it says that school-aged children are so sexually confused. But why are they doing this? Why do they continue to shove this down our throat? Who were the legislators that helped with this same-sex marriage bill legislation? And you wonder how they get through the system so quickly. People like our Mayor Eric Adams, who was one of the leaders in making sure it happened. Hold on, here it go.
And I believe that there are certain moments here where we can benchmark our lives by the vote we took.
This when he was Senator Eric Adams.
I want to read off a list of states like my colleague, who I have so much respect for, Reverend Diaz, and I admire his position. I believe he's taking the position from his heart and not from his mind. Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Missouri, Mississippi, North and South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, District of Columbia, and Nebraska. All states that at one time or another sold blacks into slavery and participated into legal slavery.
Again, the disrespect to try to grandfather clause a sexual identity into black suffering. This is how black politicians do this. Now, this is back, I believe, in 2009. This is crazy. Yeah, December of 2009.
Because the numerical majority is in one place does not mean they're in the right place. We are in a position right now where we have to lead the country in the right place. A few important quotes that I think we must read and we must hear. The amalgamation of the races is not only unnatural, but is always productive of deplorable results. The purity of the public morals, the moral and physical development of both races in the highest advancement of civilization, all require that races should be kept distinctively separate, and that the connections and alliances so unnatural should be prohibited by the positive law and subject to no evasion. These were rulings by not same-sex marriage. These were rulings by interracial marriages. This was the law of the land. It was.
Look at the shenanigans here. Look at the shenanigans here. And when people were pushing, we got to get out and vote, and he's on our side. I have to remind folks. This is disrespectful. What in the hell does that have to do with black folks suffering? And they use this verbiage all the time. It's so disrespectful. It's so disrespectful, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of everybody using black people as a whipping child to their own self-advancement. Because this is all it is. This is all it is. It's so disrespectful, and I'm tired of it. But I wanted to show y'all how dangerous this is, number one, and where it all comes from. Sexual degeneracy. When our people were on plantations, they had what you call breeding farms, sexual breeding farms. I believe Baltimore has one of the highest rates of incest because the city of Baltimore was once a sex farm. Places like Jamaica was used for sexual breeding. And I want you, as you watch this clip, remember how the Democratic Party likes to use black women as their bailiwick in their aggression in succession of winning an election for their party. You know, black women have been bred sexually. That pathology is passed down to us. You have to ask the question, well, why is it that some black women are so sexually loose, if you will? Or why black men can have children and have sex loosely and leave them? Well, it's a pathology. The pathology of this sexual identity, this new sexual revolution that they're calling, which is nothing but a death style. But I want to give you a pretext, and then we'll come back and discuss it. Hold on, family.
Story of slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, the forced labor, the inhumane treatment of men, women, and children, and the eventual abolition of the slave trade. But what many of us don't know is that the abolition of the slave trade in the early 19th century led to the creation of a new and even more sinister aspect of slavery: sex farms and slave breeding farms. The goal of these farms was simple: to produce more slaves. Slave owners realized that they could no longer import slaves from Africa, so they turned to breeding them like animals. They would carefully select which slaves would mate with each other based on their physical attributes, health, and even intelligence, in the hopes of producing the strongest and most profitable offspring. Slave breeding farms were located throughout the southern United States, with some estimates suggesting that there were as many as 70 in operation at the height of their popularity. These farms were often run by wealthy plantation owners who saw slave breeding as a lucrative business opportunity. But the horrors of slave breeding farms did not stop there. In some cases, plantation owners would set up sex farms, where slaves, often young girls,
as a financial opportunity. Now, I want you to think about all of these missing black women and girls. Sex trafficking. What's going on now? Always connect the dots. Let's continue.
girls were forced to engage in sexual activity with other slaves or with the plantation owners themselves. The offspring of these forced sexual encounters were also seen as profitable commodities and were often sold off at auctions to the highest bidder. The true extent of these practices is difficult to quantify, as records were often destroyed or deliberately hidden. But it is estimated that thousands of slaves were forced to participate in these breeding programs, resulting in countless atrocities and human rights violations. In this video, we are going to reveal 10 of the most horrific facts of slave breeding and sex farms in the United States. These facts may be uncomfortable to hear, but it's important to acknowledge the brutality and inhumanity of slavery in all its forms. But before that, hit the subscribe button to stay on this channel for more content like this. Fact number 1. Enslaved women were seen as breeding machines and impregnated by several men. One of the most disturbing facts about sex farms during slavery is that enslaved women were seen as little more than breeding machines. Plantation owners and overseers saw them as a means of producing more enslaved people to increase their wealth and power. In order to achieve this goal, enslaved women were often forced to have sex with several men, regardless of their own desires or consent. This practice was particularly prevalent in the Deep South, where the climate and soil were well suited to the cultivation of cotton, and the demand for enslaved labor was high. Enslaved women on these plantations were often subjected to brutal physical and sexual abuse, with no hope of escape or redress. They were seen as property rather than human beings, and their bodies were treated as such. The practice of forced breeding was not limited to the Deep South, however. It was also common in other regions of the country, including the Chesapeake Bay area and the Upper South. Plantation owners in these areas also saw enslaved women as a means of increasing their wealth and power, and used them accordingly. The evidence for the
increasing their wealth and power. Yet no one wants to talk about reparations. No one wants to deal with that. Why should they have reparations? It's crazy. This is crazy. This is nuts. Again, remember the pathology. When you look at some of these entertainers today, people like, what's her name? What's that girl named Sister Marcia? I see you on the check-in. What's the big girl name? What's her name? Lizzo. Having women sexually clad during performances as a preference. Again, the number one export in the world is Black culture. Sister Marcia, how you doing?
Peace, family. How you doing today?
Good. What's your thoughts on this clip, sis?
Well, we were chit-chatting about it throughout the week because you had sent it to me to, do some study and be ready, right? And I tell you, it just hurts my heart to know what our mothers went through during a particular time. And then to even more hurt my heart to see our brothers are still in that pathology, right? Unknown to them, they still do these things as if this is the norm. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to just make babies and leave. Look at Nick Cannon. Right here, right now, in front of our eyes, he's telling us he's going to have 13, 14, 17 children. He doesn't care because he's in that, in the back of his mind, this is the norm. This is what makes for a perfect man. And it doesn't. So this is really heartbreaking. And how do we find a way to break that cycle so that our great-grandchildren aren't falling into this same pattern? And I remember the first time that I even heard about this was Iyanla Vanzant's in one of Fix My Life. And the grown man had 23 children. And she's saying, you can't care for 23 children. Putting all these little babies in his hands, like doll babies in his hands. And she's like, carry them. And he couldn't. And so that was the first time I even heard of the idea that a sex farm existed and what it did to the psychology of our brothers out in these streets who haven't been taught this so that they can break the cycle within themselves and become great fathers. Because there was a clip recently where Kaba was talking about, our brothers don't know how to be fathers. So of course they're using what they knew from before as an example, and it doesn't help us as a community and to form strong Black leadership in our society. So yeah, and on Lizzo, she's just so talented, and to use her body as the voice forward. And her body is her body. I'm not critiquing her body, but you are uber talented and you're leaving it only onto your body and you don't have no clothes on. And even if it was a Beyonce that were to do that, I still don't like it. I don't care if you're 3 pounds or 3,000 pounds. Your body is not your talent. Your talent is your talent, and your mind should speak first and not your body speaking first. So those are my thoughts so far.
Yes, it's just that they're not they're not allowing our people to connect these dots and purposefully. No one is going to educate you to overthrow them, right? But again, we live in this modern age of technology, walking around with many computers in our pockets or purses or whatever, and still wish to remain ignorant is baffling to me. But again, to sexualize the art as a ways to continue to gain profit from the sexualization of black women and girls. And I just want our people to understand that when we see you know the rise and increase of black women and girls going missing, we have to connect these dots and understand that they too can be trafficked and continue to be sexualized. So let's continue to watch this clip and we'll come back and discuss it.
Forced breeding of enslaved women can be found in a number of historical sources. Or breeding stock. These records also reveal the number of children produced by these women, as well as their age, health, and other relevant information. In addition to plantation records, there are also numerous slave narratives that document the experiences of enslaved women who were forced to breed. One such narrative is that of Harriet Jacobs, an enslaved woman who lived in North Carolina in the mid-19th century. In her memoir, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, Jacobs describes the horror of being forced to have sex with her owner in order to produce children. Fact number 2. Female slaves were forced into sexual relationships with their owners or overseers. Sexual abuse.
Let's talk about this sister, who was forced. I mean, that pathology passed down. And again, we having to relive this horror over and over and over again. It seems that our conditions, our plight is never at the forefront when it comes to political talk in this country or abroad. We're just told to, keep it pushing, keep it moving. And you wonder why black women are so tough or have to take on so much. Because even then, there was no protection for us. Yeah, you had our brothers and women who fought back against this system, but still conditioned to the horror, never getting justice. So when people say, you don't deserve reparation, I got a problem with that. I got a problem with that. So let's continue, family. Hold on.
Abuse of female slaves was widespread during the period of American slavery. Slave women were not only subjected to forced labor, but also to sexual exploitation by their owners and overseers. This practice was not limited to any particular region or plantation, but it was prevalent throughout the American South. The first evidence of sexual abuse of female slaves can be traced back to the transatlantic slave trade. Female slaves were often taken captive and forced to endure the long and arduous journey across the Atlantic in cramped and unsanitary conditions. During this journey, slave women were subjected to sexual abuse by the crew members and the other male slaves. Once in the American South, female slaves were subjected to even more sexual abuse. This abuse took many forms, including rape, forced sexual relationships, and prostitution. Owners and overseers would often take advantage of their power and authority to coerce slave women into sexual relationships. These relationships were often violent and non-consensual, and many slave women were impregnated as a result. The children...
I want to let me bring my sister Marcia back in. I think I see Brother Black getting set up in the background. We're gonna let him continue to get set up. But when they say the forced sexualization on the journey here and when they got here, then to have their offspring taken from them, sometimes murdered or sold off, used for profit or what have you. That pathology passed down again and again. Sister Marcia, your thoughts on that clip?
It's very interesting. Breaks my heart. But it's very interesting because to this day, I don't know what rap song says it, but when I hear that, when I'm thinking about it, I want to say it in that rap voice. But to this day, we still see our children, even when they're being murdered in front of us, right? All of these guys that I can't breathe or I can't. This is a replica of being ripped out of your mother's hand during those particular times, right? So it's like same thing, different day, different scene, but we're not realizing it's still the same. It's just the environment has changed. And so we're comfortable with the environment. We're just too comfortable as a group of people. And until we get uncomfortable with the idea of losing our children by the enemy for no good reason, just because they can, just because they are allowed to, this is when we'll continue the saga. We need to break the cycle. I don't have any words. And even if you think about it, nowadays they're trafficking people, having them have children for their organs, right? They're doing all of these organ treatments and all of these regeneration processes for other folks with our organs, with our blood, with our sweat, and we're not even thinking about it. We're just thinking about the quick fix, or we abandon our children. Foster homes or whatever they're called. I don't even think they called orphanage, but the demographic of Black children, even here in America, let's not even go, oh, it only happens on the continent or in the Caribbean. But here in America, the amount of Black bodies that live in these places and that are not taken care of, this is also part of that pathology of, I don't need to care for these people. Somebody else is going to take care of these people. But you're creating these people through rape, through incest, through all type of abuses. People are being created and left in torturous ways. I don't know. This topic is a little bit too heavy for me.
It's all right, sis. In honor of Mother's Day, we got to
Yeah.
deal with it. Again, remember
Oh,
the
this
past.
guy is a joke.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna let our people see. This is what, the fourth or fifth great grandson of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. But again, negating the horror, settling with this pathology. Let's deal with it. For our family. Play this clip real quick. Hold on, family. Here we go.
Did you know that the President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, had more than one family?
We are the 7th great-grandchildren of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings.
I'm 8th generation descendant of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings.
I am the 4 times great-granddaughter of Thomas Jefferson.
I am the 4th great-granddaughter.
I'm the 4th great-grandson of Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson.
I'm a 9th generation descendant.
I'm the 5th great-grandson.
I'm the 5th great-granddaughter.
I am the 6th great-grandson of President Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. And now you know.
This pathology, again, accepting it.
Being proud of it. Like your great-grandmother, that generation was raped. There wasn't no, and for some idea, I think they think that it was a relationship, that they were agreeing to create these lives. He sold children. He sold some of his children that he had. You are just able to trace it, but there are people that have been sold. And now that you're saying all of these things, are Are you given a check? Do you get something? Or are you just so happy to say the name Thomas Jefferson was my grandfather? I would hate to say that name. I would be disgusted. And then to raise a new generation of people to be proud. Yes, be proud of your life, but know the tragedy. Your great grandmother was raped. She didn't have anyone out of love, and your being down the line is not created out of love either. Maybe your parents did, but the psychology and that DNA still prevails in the back of your mind. And so you yourself can still, if you don't break the cycle, still create that same pathology, right? So now you could become a great grandfather and you still do the same thing. I want to know, what I would really want to know is how many of Thomas Jefferson's great grandchildren are rapists? Because I know some of them got.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's an
It's in the
interesting
cycle.
dynamic.
I'm sorry.
No, that's an interesting dynamic. I mean, you got to look at it. You got to look at it. You got to deal with it, and we got to look at it. Sister Tosh Monique said, I cannot deal with how low they are, how they are accepting this.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
It makes no sense. Like, no one is even saying that, okay, fine, I'm the grandchild, but I'm here through rape. No one is saying that my grandmother wasn't in a loving relationship. The guy is proud. Thomas Jefferson. Be proud of your grandmother because she did something. She dealt with something in order for you to survive. Because, I don't know. I don't know if I could deal with things like that. I think I would be slitting people's throat. That whole song, Way in the Water, and I don't know which one of the nanas had said that that's also a conversation of taking your offsprings because you don't want them to live in this cycle that is created. And mass is going to sell you, mass is going to do whatever you want with you. I'm going to just take your life. I think I'll be that type of mom. And I always say that if shit hit the fan and things have to go down, best to believe I'm the only one that's going to take my own child's life. Nobody else will do that. I will not allow it.
All right, I'm gonna let Sister Marcia calm down. She get hot, y'all. She get hot, but you can't blame her. It's the shenanigans. Sister Pat said Thomas was a child rapist. Absolutely, absolutely. That's what he was. Plain and simple. That's what he was.
Absolutely. A little girl. How many children did she end up having?
I don't know. I forgot at this point. I
It
can't
doesn't
remember
even
right
matter.
now.
But yeah, she was young, and then I don't know. I don't know how people can deal with this.
It is. Hold on, family. Let's continue.
Born from these forced sexual relationships were not considered the children of their fathers, but rather the property of their mother's owners. This meant that these children were also slaves and could be sold or traded just like any other commodity. This practice was particularly common in the Upper South, where slaves were bred for sale to the Lower South. One example of this practice can be found in the story of Sally Hemings, a slave woman who was owned by former U.S. President Thomas Jefferson. Hemings was forced into a sexual relationship with Jefferson, and she gave birth to 6 children, 4 of whom survived to adulthood. These children were not recognized as Jefferson's children during his lifetime, but DNA evidence has since confirmed their paternity. Another particularly disturbing example of sexual abuse is the case of Celia, a slave woman who was owned by Robert Newsom in Missouri. Newsom repeatedly raped Celia, and when she became pregnant, he refused to acknowledge the child as his own. When Celia killed Newsom in an act of self-defense, she was tried and convicted of murder and hanged. This case highlights the brutal reality of sexual abuse and violence that many slave women faced in the American South. Fact number 3.
I mean, Team Celia.
That's me. That's me.
Team
I'm taking
Celia.
lives. I'm claiming bodies and you want to take me out too? No problem. But I'm getting mine off because I cannot. It makes no sense.
And even so, again, she being attacked, right? Sexually, violently, yet she was found guilty of killing him. There is no self-defense law for black women when it comes to white men. There is no self-defense law. Still today. That's why they could kidnap and rape a Tawana Brawley.
Mm-hmm.
That's why in the military they could rape and murder a Lavinia Johnson. Right?
What about that woman in Florida who her neighbor, the white man, was coming after her? She shot in the air and she was sentenced to
Actually, that was it was her ex-husband.
But he was not her. He was not.
There was no stand your ground for Marissa Alexander. That's her name. There
Right.
was no stand your ground for Marissa Alexander. But again, there is no self-defense law because remember the dictum of Justice Roger Taney. There are no rights that black folks have that white men are bound to respect. And we still live under that today. So we got to remember, family, always connect the dots. Remember what your foremothers have gone through. Use history as your guide in life. Sister Tosh Monique said, I really understand more now than ever before why my grandma never went back to North Carolina. Rest in peace, Granny. You know, my grandmother was like that too. She didn't want nothing to do with North Carolina. She went a couple of times to family reunions only because, her younger sister, my Aunt Bertha, was going and Aunt Bertha made grandma go with her. But she didn't want nothing to do with, Spartanburg, South Carolina. No, nothing to do with it whatsoever. But again, it's that pathology of what they suffered. And we still suffering today. And we're going backward, family. When you see the aggression of these Karens and, these white men who can beat up black women in parking lots and smack them up in restaurants, or the Asian man beating them down in a store, it's that pathology to get you used to, again, what they plan to bring back.
Right. And if they can do it with all this technology around you, guess who's going to think that, oh, well, that woman was wrong? Our children are always going to see that person was right if we don't speak up, if we don't have these conversations. We need to stop being afraid of having tough conversations with our children. I think that is one of the biggest problems that we have, is that, even when we knew Uncle Billy was a predator in the house, you won't tell the children, this is why I don't want you near Uncle Billy. Uncle Billy is a predator. This is what predator means. And you teach them from a young. Or even Aunt May. Aunt May's, because I think we forget that women are just as predator-rich as men. We forget this type of conversation. This is why so many of our young men are always saying, oh, look at that fine woman. She's not fine to you. She is a mother to you. You can't look at, they already have a sexualization of women from a tiny age. And people think it's cute. Oh, it's okay. It's not. It's not.
Facts. Let's continue, family. Hold on.
The offspring produced on sex farms were separated from their families and sold as soon as they were weaned. The practice of separating families during slavery was widespread, and it was not uncommon for enslaved children to be sold away from their parents. However, on sex farms, this practice was particularly prevalent. Enslaved women who were forced to breed were often impregnated by men who were not their husbands or partners. As a result, the children produced on sex farms were not part of a nuclear family unit, but rather a product to be sold for profit. According to historical records, many plantation owners saw the sale of enslaved children as a lucrative business opportunity. The price of an enslaved child varied depending on factors such as age, gender, and health, but they were generally sold for a higher price than adult enslaved people. This was because the children had the potential to grow up and become productive laborers, as well as future breeders themselves. In many cases, enslaved children were sold at public auctions, where they would be separated from their mothers and other family members. These auctions were often traumatic for both the enslaved people being sold and those who remained behind. In his book, The Half Has Never Been Told: Slavery and the Making of American Capitalism, historian Edward E. Baptist describes the emotional pain that families experienced when they were separated. Enslaved people wailed and moaned, sobbed and screamed, and many of them ran to the edge of the auction platform, reaching for children or parents or lovers who were being sold away from them. The separation of families on sex farms had long-lasting effects on the enslaved people involved. Children who were sold away from their mothers often faced a lifetime of trauma and loss, and parents who were forced to give up their children lived with the pain of that separation for the rest of their lives. Fact number 4. Some plantation owners would offer rewards to enslaved men who could impregnate the most women. It may seem unimaginable to think that a person could be rewarded for impregnating multiple women, but this was a reality for some enslaved men on sex farms during slavery. Plantation owners would offer incentives to enslaved men who could produce.
Now, let's deal with this pathology. I think we got Brother Black in here. He working it out. He working it out. I see you, Brother Black. There you go. I got you. I got you, brother. Go
Can you
ahead,
hear
sis-
me?
Yep, we got you, brother. Go ahead, Sister
Yeah.
Marcia. Your thoughts on this?
The
You see
volume
Nick
is
Cannon?
really low. I'm gonna try to speak loud enough. Basically, as far as the factors we're talking about, we're all messed up as a result of all what we've been through and all over the world. So, you know, we're gonna have to get it back when we go back to Mahat and all the things that I've been talking about previously. You know, since I've been on this show and even before, because Keisha, you know, I've been on this for a minute, and I'm sure Sister Marcia is as well, and you know, our brothers who are not here yet. Hopefully, they'll be in any minute now. We just gonna have to.
Uh-oh, we lost our brother Black. Sister Marcia, your thoughts on this clip, you know, as far as them giving them incentives. And we know those incentives, but we know those incentives were, number one, to get them drunk. That was often a rule. For them to be drunk on Saturday night. See, you wonder why you have that pathology. We got a party on Saturday night and get lit. That's a part of this pathology. I ain't want to. Go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
And we could organize on a party. You know how often it's hard for me to see, like, I can't organize on an idea, but let me say, I'm going to have some Hennessy. I'm going to have some this, that, and the third. Everyone will be there. Now, granted, Hennessy is my drink of choice, but I don't only go out for the Hennessy. I go out for the business too, because I know what's important. And so many times, no one knows what's important. No one knows our livelihoods are at stake right now. Even, you know, so many people that are, oh, okay, Nick Cannon, oh, okay. But Nick Cannon is falling into that pathology of, you know, hey, I'm going to get a new TV show, or I'm going to get something new. I'm going to get something out of this looking like a fool with all these children. And it's okay to, I'm not even saying it's bad for you to have children. My question is, how are you going to mentally care for children? So many times people just think it's just dropping a load that's important. No, it's about the psychology of caring for children. That's why so many children are out here cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because they have never been cared for. No matter how hard people try, people have never invested in care at a large. You know, like, I know everyone here always cares, but at a large, when we look at our communities, the level of care for our children isn't there. And since they're being bribed just to have children, and today mothers are being bribed to have children, right? The more children you have, the higher your welfare check comes, the higher your Section 8 thing comes. Everything gets more if you keep having more children and not
And
understanding.
then they're feeding these children to the prison industrial complex,
Ashe.
to these mental institutions, while taking the children away and putting them into these foster homes or foster camps, I like to call them.
Mm-hmm.
God knows what is happening to these children. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
hear stories every day. So again, Black women producing children for economic growth of a state.
Mm-hmm.
All you got
Mm-hmm.
to do is go to family court any day, and you'll see the division of Black family and family
Mm-hmm.
court and who the facilitators are. If anyone gets a chance, a day off during the week, go to your local family court and just have a view of it and see all
And
the shenanigans that go on.
I think the unfortunate part of, all these extra security measures and stuff like that, we can't enter but so far in places like we used to do before. If you don't have an official paperwork, they'll just let you in this far because that's as far as you go. But back in the days, you used to be able to go into courthouses and really see what's going on, and the atrocity against our community, and to see sometimes the mothers don't even care. They're just like, oh yeah, this is it. I can't care for this child no more. Or even the whole idea that the system says, if your mom beats you, because I know I told this story a couple of times. My son, I knocked him upside his head one day, and the school teacher calls me, or the guidance council said, you knocked your son out upside his head. And I said, so I can't knock him upside his head, but the police can knock him upside his head. If I can't do it, no one else can do it. Don't ever call me again about knocking my son upside his head. He's going to learn the right way from me and not from you all. The right way is not calling the cops on me because I did something. The right way is showing him what he did wrong by my hands, not your hands. And that's another thing. We've removed fathers from our homes, unfortunately, for whatever reason, right? We were either hot to tot, that was me, hot to tot, had a baby, or, you just don't know how to get along to raise healthy children. So at the end of the day, they could come inside your home and discipline your children, and you cannot. We don't see that's a problem, but they could beat them on camera, show the world, but I can't be in my house disciplining you. I can't take away your Xbox because I'm damaging you, but you could come in my house, knock down my front door that I got to pay for afterwards. I got to pay for it. You knock down my front door, I got to pay for it. And then tell me, give him back his Xbox? Man, brothers and sisters, let them try me, because I will be the one inside them systems before my child be inside the system. This has to stop, and we have to be the ones to understand. And sometimes, our children have been bred to understand how the system works against their parents, right? Oh, if I call, this is what's going to happen. And I get this and I get that. And my parents, because they don't understand the ramification. And parents need to not be afraid of showing them what the ramification looks like. Oh, you want to call the big boys on me? Go with them. Go spend 30 days and then come back and tell me I'm wrong. Because you'll remember the comfort life that I gave you, you idiots. I'm sorry.
Facts. My mom has transitioned a long time ago, and I'm still scared of my mom. I ain't doing nothing. I'm telling you right now. Sister Pat said parents should not abdicate their rights as parents. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But again, the reason why they tell our children that and then try to force a sexual degeneracy on them is to let you know that your children don't belong to you. They still belong to us. And this is why we have to understand the pathology so that we can make right decisions, especially when it comes to people we put in power to represent our voice.
The most offspring, which would be sold for profit. This practice perpetuated the dehumanization of enslaved people and further cemented their status as property rather than human beings with agency and autonomy. In some cases, plantation owners would even go so far as to pit enslaved men against each other in a competition to impregnate the most women. This not only caused harm to the enslaved women who were forced to participate in this system, but also created a toxic environment among enslaved men who were forced to compete with each other for the approval of their enslavers. One example of this can be found in the diary of a plantation owner named James Hammond, who owned several plantations in South Carolina during the mid-1800s. In his diary, Hammond detailed his efforts to breed enslaved people for profit and boasted about the fertility of his enslaved women. He wrote that he offered rewards to the enslaved men who could impregnate the most women, stating that it was a great stimulus for them. This type of behavior is not only morally reprehensible, but it also had lasting consequences for the enslaved people who were forced to participate in the system. The offspring produced in this way were often sold as soon as they were weaned, leading to the separation of families and further dehumanization of enslaved people. Fact number 5. Enslaved women who were deemed to be good breeders were often treated better than those who were not. With the abolition of the slave trade, enslavers turned to women to expand the numbers of their slaves. During this time, women were viewed as reproductive machines, and their ability to bear children was a significant factor in determining their value. Enslaved women who were deemed to be good breeders were highly valued, and plantation owners often treated them better than those who were not. According to historian Deirdre Cooper Owens, plantation owners would use various criteria to determine which women were good breeders. Some factors included age, physical attributes, and fertility rates. Enslaved women who met these criteria were forced to have sex with male slaves, often against their will, and were then closely monitored throughout their pregnancies to ensure that they produced healthy offspring. Plantation owners often provided better living conditions and food to enslaved women who were good breeders. They would also give them preferential treatment in terms of work assignments and punishments. This was because the offspring produced by these women were more valuable and profitable for the plantation owner. One example of this can be seen in the life of the famous abolitionist, Harriet Jacobs. Jacobs was enslaved in North Carolina and was forced to have 2 children with her owner, Dr. James Norcom. She was deemed a good breeder and was treated relatively well compared to other enslaved women on the plantation. However, Jacobs refused to have any more children with Norcom and chose to hide in a small attic space for 7 years to avoid his advances.
Hold on. Forced to hide for 7 years in an attic to get away from this sexual abuse, this rapist. And yet, they tell us to forget about reparation. We still deal with that pathology. Go ahead, sis.
No, we must study Anne Frank. She stayed in a closet for so many years, in an attic. Oh my God, Anne Frank is a hero. No, Mama Jacob is a hero. Mama Jacob chose her life over everything else. We are the ones that are forgetting. They are so breeding the idea of those folks are so much more important than we, the people. We are the people. We're the people that created the greatest enterprise that exists on this world, the human commodity. We created it. And yet we're leaving other people to manage it. Come on, folks. We must be able to manage ourselves in the best way possible. And I forgot. You can remember. You can take the time and remember. Just go to those deep shadow places and remember. It's all available to us, but we choose. Like Sister Keisha said earlier, we have technology at our hands all the time, but we choose willingly. Not us here listening right now, but our people choose the other stuff all the time, to do the other things all the time. And so now we're combating everything. We're always in a fight that we never have a chance to sit down, think, and improve our management style. We don't have a management styles, brothers and sisters, and it's hard.
Agreed. Agreed. This is hard to deal with, but we have to, family. We have to. We have to, so we can change behaviors. So you can educate those who don't know a little bit better. Let's continue.
Despite the preferential treatment that some enslaved women received, they were still subject to the brutal conditions of slavery. They were still considered property and were forced to have sex against their will. Fact number 6. Slave breeding was a profitable business for slave owners and seen as a way to increase the owner's wealth. The breeding of enslaved people allowed plantation owners to increase their wealth by producing more enslaved people without having to pay for additional labor. Plantation owners often kept detailed records of the children born on their farms, noting their age, sex, and parentage. These records served as a way for owners to keep track of their assets and to calculate the value of their property. Children born to enslaved mothers were often sold at auction, with the price being determined by a number of factors, including their age, health, and sex. The profitability of the breeding of enslaved people can be seen in the records like that of Thomas Thistlewood. The Jamaican plantation owner kept meticulous records of his breeding practices that would be revealed centuries later. Between 1750 and 1786, he recorded over 3,000 births on his farm, with many of these children being the result of forced breeding. Thistlewood saw
3,000 births. 3,000 births. Let's continue.
The breeding of enslaved people as a way to increase his wealth, noting in his diary that all slaves are profitable, but breeding women more so than men. Another example of the profitability of slave breeding can be seen in the story of Isaac Franklin and John Armfield, two slave traders who operated in Alexandria, Virginia. Franklin and Armfield specialized in the slave trade and made a fortune by buying and selling slaves. They also engaged in the practice of slave breeding, and Franklin is estimated to have fathered over 600 children with female slaves in his possession.
Hold it. Hold it. Hold it. Hold it. 3,000. 600. Now, also, I want y'all to know that they used to pay white male college students on their summer break, or what we call spring break. Remember Freaknik? Let's connect the dots. They would pay them $25 at that time. That's a lot of money to come to their farms every summer to breed slaves. You can look at the docu-film, Goodbye Uncle Tom. And they explain that in that docu-film, and it's available to watch on YouTube. But again, now, how many black girls and black women for years going down to Freaknik, come back damaged, some not coming back, some impregnated. And now you have reality shows that teach this behavior. You know, your thoughts, sis, on 3,000 and 6,000.
This man has 600 children by himself. That's what he bred. He bred. So there's 600, and then coming down to descendants, little people like this sucker. Because I want to say another word, but I'm going to be nice because we're on air. I don't know why he's still on screen. Like, I get it. We need to remember his face, but his face does not need to be remembered.
That's
Because
right. Remember
every
the
time I look
attackers.
at that's now every time I look at a person, I'm gonna be like, yo, does he have this eye? Does he look like him? Is he one of his descendants? Because you have 600 children. You know how many people that could create today? If each one of those 600 today, let's say, had 3 children and 3 keep it going, you know how many people that is?
Again, go back to what you said. When you think about Uncle Billy who was touching on the kids, where does this pathology come from?
Ashe. Ashe. And then 3,000. He created 3,000 lives on within 36 years. That's about 100 children a year. These are children that were ripped out of their arms of their mothers. And then we wonder why our society operates like that. You know how many children were not raised with their mothers? You know how important mothers are to the livelihoods of people? Not only fathers, but everyone is important. But a mother's role is so crucial to a child's development. Whatever the mother knows, the child knows. Whatever strength the father has, the child gains. But these children are without it. And so we wonder why our society looks the way they do, and why some people could care less about their children and their great grandchildren. Why do we treat people like this? This is a pathology that's embedded in us, unbeknownst to us, that we do things. Even if you were raised in a loving home, you could turn around and be the most evilest person because you have that pathology in the back of your head that you never knew to remove from and get counseling from, get cultural counseling. That's what we need. We need a lot of cultural counseling to get over a lot of this stigma that lives on us. And, you know, I think of Malcolm's quote, the field Negro versus the house Negro. And in this conversation, I believe Malcolm is talking about the male person, but we never talk about what, like my new word, our foremothers have gone through, in terms of, we already know they pin the lighter hue versus the darker hue in sisterhood, right? Sisters be like, oh, you know, nice hair versus bad hair and stuff like that. That's what us sisters do. But there is a conversation around who is being treated better because she's having better children, or she can breed more often than who cannot be bred as often. It's a very pivotal conversation that we need to start having, because we need to understand why we dislike each other so much sometimes. Sometimes we don't even know each other and we hate each other. This is a bad thing, and we have to somehow, again, culturally counsel each other out of this thought process.
Indeed, indeed. But again, as we celebrate our mothers, let's truly honor what they've been through. Let's not forget what's happened, family. Let's continue.
These children were then sold or traded for a profit. In addition to these records, there are numerous other historical documents that provide striking evidence to these barbaric practices. For example, advertisements for slave auctions often highlighted the breeding capabilities of enslaved women, with phrases such as prolific breeders or good breeders being used to describe them. These advertisements serve as a stark reminder of the inhumane and exploitative nature of the slave trade. Fact number 7. Plantation owners would hire doctors to oversee the breeding of enslaved people and to treat any medical issues that arose. While it may seem paradoxical for doctors, who are supposed to be healers, to oversee the breeding of enslaved people, this was a common practice on many plantations during the antebellum period. Plantation owners would hire doctors to ensure that enslaved women were healthy enough to breed, and to treat any medical issues that arose during the breeding process. One particularly notorious example of this was Dr. J. Marion Sims, who is often referred to as the father of modern gynecology. Sims performed a number of experimental surgeries on enslaved women in the mid-1800s, including...
Hold on. Speaking of J. Marion Sims, let's not forget they had a statue of this fool in Central Park. Central Park, which was once formerly what? Seneca Village. Now, remember, it was Elizabeth Jennings who first stood up against the aggression of black women on a city bus in Seneca Village 100 years prior to Rosa Parks. Connect the dots, family. Connect the dots. Let's continue.
Surgeries to repair fistulas, a condition that often occurred during childbirth. Sims conducted these surgeries without anesthesia, as he believed that enslaved people did not experience pain in the same way as white people. His work on fistulas led to the development of new surgical techniques, but it came at a great cost to the enslaved women who were subjected to his experiments. In addition to performing surgeries, doctors were also responsible for ensuring that enslaved women were healthy enough to produce offspring. This often involved monitoring their diets and treating any illnesses that could affect their ability to conceive. However, it's important to note that this care was not provided out of concern for the well-being of the enslaved people, but rather to ensure that they were able to produce more enslaved people for the plantation owner's profit. Fact number 8.
Just for clarity, for our brothers to understand that that same instrument is still being used today in our gynecological visits. It's still being used today, family. So, sisters, every time you climb on the table, when you go to your gynecologist, you have to scoot down to the end of the table.
And that
insert that. Come on, insert that. Let's connect the pathology and the history. It's just not a doctor's visit.
I feel like they take it out of a freezer. Cold. It is so cold. It brings chills all up your spine. And, if you don't have an African doctor, other doctors are pretty mean with that instrument. They're just like, and you're like, are you serious? What's going on here? Oh, it's okay. You moved. I moved? Are you crazy? I'm not having fun here. There's no reason for me to move. And they would, brothers, just think about the fact that when y'all have those little prostate exam, and I call them little because I don't have them, but when y'all have them little prostate exam and y'all don't like it, just imagine what we go through, especially when there's a mean doctor in place. Because if we're in an emergency situation, we don't have the kindest person. And when we're in the hospital, us sisters are in the hospital, they don't consider us. They don't consider our feelings because, as they said, they gave us no medication for pain because we're supposed to deal with pain. And this is one of the other reasons. Go ahead, sis.
Connect that dot, sis, that we're supposed to endure pain. This is their thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want you, family, to think about when we are hurting mentally, even when our own do it to us, we're supposed to accept it, endure it, forgive it, and move through it. That pathology, again, being passed down, we're not supposed to say no. We're supposed to be forgiving. So again, family, let's not, put these instances in boxes.
Mm-hmm.
We have to connect the dots of what's really happening and what has happened to Black women. Let's continue.
Enslaved women on sex farms were often given inadequate nutrition and health care, leading to high rates of infant mortality. While fertile women were considered valuable and used as reproductive machines to produce more slaves on sex farms, the living conditions on these farms were not any better, and as a result, many infants did not survive. Enslaved women on sex farms were forced to work long hours in the fields, which meant that they were not able to take care of their babies as they should. The infants were often malnourished and sickly, and the women had no access to proper medical care to help them. This would contribute to the high rates of infant mortality as at that time. One example of this is the case of the Louisiana State Penitentiary, also known as Angola Prison. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Angola Prison had a large population of enslaved women who were forced to work on a sex farm. The women were subjected to brutal treatment and were given little food and water. They were also denied medical care and were forced to give birth in filthy conditions, which led to high rates of infant mortality. In a report published by the American Public Health Association in 1915, it was noted that the infant mortality rate at Angola Prison was 75%. This means that out of every 4 infants born on the farm, only 1 survived. This is a...
Today, the highest rate of infant mortality births through Black women. Black women. Let's connect the dots, family. Nothing has changed. Nothing. The pathology, look at it. Let's go.
Staggering statistic and shows just how dire the situation was for these women and their children. Unfortunately, Angola Prison was not the only place case. Many other sex farms across the country had similarly high rates of infant mortality. The women who were forced to work on these farms were subjected to unimaginable cruelty, leading to the death of their babies. Fact number 9. The practice of slave breeding and sex farms continued even after the abolition of slavery. Even after the abolition of slavery, the practice of slave breeding and sex farms continued in some parts of the United States. While the 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery in 1865, it did not prohibit the practice of slave breeding or sexual exploitation of former slaves. In fact, there is evidence to suggest that the practice of slave breeding continued in some parts of the South well into the early 20th century. This was due in part to the fact that many former slaves continued to work on the same plantations where they had been enslaved and were still subject to the same exploitative and abusive conditions. One of the most well-known cases of post-abolition slave breeding occurred in Natchez, Mississippi. Between the late 1860s and the early 1900s, wealthy white planters in the area engaged in a system of fancy trade, where they would buy and sell young, light-skinned African-American women who were specifically bred for their physical appearance and sexual appeal.
You on mute, sis.
Thanks. Peace, brother.
Keisha, you on mute.
When you have people who say, I like that light skin, I like that red bone, which is derogatory because red bone is actually a Native American tribe, the name of an indigenous tribe. So I hate when people use that terminology. But again, the pathology, where does it all come from? You can't look at things on a surface. Again, we are not individuals. We are DNA makeup, and that DNA dictates how you move, how you live, your life experience, where you been, and where you gotta go. I see my brother Ashe SJ on the check-in. What's good, brother Ashe?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. First and foremost, definitely got to say happy belated Mother's Day to all the queens in the house that support, that watch the show. I hope y'all enjoyed your day. And to all the brothers and everybody out there that's too conscious to celebrate Mother's Day. Because, we got some people out there saying, no, that's a white man's Mother's Day. You celebrating a white man mother? Nah, listen. Be stupid if you want and don't celebrate your moms on Mother's Day. And see how many knots you get in your head. Because I know my moms ain't having that. But, yeah, definitely take my hat off and salute. We love and appreciate all of our Black queens. And I hope y'all enjoyed your Mother's Day. And also, I think one of y'all, I was listening in the background, one of y'all mentioned Malcolm X. His birthday is actually tomorrow. And, we definitely honor and appreciate that Baba for all the work that he's done and continue to do when it comes to just changing and inspiring so many generations of Black people in this liberation struggle. But with these videos, Keisha, once again, you on point sharing this information with these videos, because a lot of times it's like we preaching to the choir. We heard about this information, but then you think about some people that have not heard about this. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people to this day still have not watched Goodbye Uncle Tom. You know, and I hate to tell them to go watch it because it's not a Black produced or owned and operated movie. You know what I'm saying? But it was just gruesomely told. I can't even say well done or well made. It was just so gruesomely truthful that you really should sacrifice whatever the 2 or 3 hours that it is to watch that and you know, really just take that in, because a lot of people, we forget, you know, especially because it was so long ago, and we don't have the oratory skills that we once had when it comes to passing our tradition down. We forget how gruesome this attack on us really is, or really was, and still is to this day. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to keep that in the flesh. Also, the book Kabuka, you know, that is a very short read by Walimu Baruti. You could check that book out. Kabuka, which tells the journey of the Middle Passage and things of that nature. So many other people have put out great works, so you could really see how gruesome and brutal, you know, this aggression against us really was and really is to this day. But I wanted to add on and say too, Keisha, because it's very fitting that you're talking about, you know, everything that's happening, especially with the breeding and, you know, just the over sexuality of Black women and Black men as well. Right now, a hot topic is after the Met Gala, right? I guess that was a week or 2 weeks ago. Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe, for those of y'all that know her or don't know of her, she's an artist that when she first came out, I knew from the jump that she wasn't what she was portraying to be. I've been said that. Matter of fact, I think it was on an old show when we had our old name of our show, and people were saying, oh, they like what she represents, because every time Janelle Monáe is a woman artist, every time you see her, she come out in a suit. And she will always wear a whole full 2-3-piece suit with a bow tie and all of that. And she would say she's standing up for women and teaching girls and women that, you know, you could be present yourself, you know, in a business-like manner, and you don't have to show your body and things of that nature. Well, right now, she done flipped the whole damn script and is doing the exact opposite of what she became famous for. What all of the children and the little girls started looking up to her and watching her for. And that's funny because they always do something like they catch your attention and then they take you in a whole different direction. Is it for the money? Is it for the attention, the clout? Who knows? But all I know is a lot of these people you can't trust. And she was one of the main ones that was trying to be like a little Erykah Badu or a little, you know, conscious, whatever you want to call it, singer that the little girls could look up to and watch, because she used to always wear a suit. And now her new album is coming out, and at the Met Gala, she was like at one of the after parties or something, or performing, and she was basically naked. She had on like a bikini, I think, or something like that, but everything was exposed. And her new song is called Lipstick Lover, and it's basically her coming out, because she been came out the closet already, but I guess she was like in between. But now she like full on, I don't even know what the term is. It's basically when you attract anything and anyone. You know what I'm saying? But she came out in this light now. So now that she did that, she got a new single called Lipstick Lover, and it's basically about how she likes lipstick on her neck. So clearly she's not talking about a man. She's talking about lipstick on her neck. And she's coming out. And the crazy thing is what they're calling this, Keisha, is the revolution. She's having her own revolution. And a lot of people are using that word revolution and freedom and all of this stuff to as an excuse to like support her and say, oh, just let her go, let her rock. She's having her own revolution. But in the respect, in hindsight of these videos that Keisha is showing us, the revolution we was fighting for was totally different, because the things they subjected us to, the slavery, and not only the slavery, but the gruesome acts, you know what I'm saying, of breeding, you know, the buck breaking that they did to our brothers, you know what I'm saying? Like so many different things, not even that, rape, you know, raping the people, incest, forcing people to have sex with other people just to make, and that's what we got to talk about too. Because on these slave farms, it wasn't just regular men having sex with regular women. Sometimes they will have the brother and the sister have sex with with each other and make babies. because they didn't see us as, they saw us as 3/5 of human beings. So they didn't see us as human beings. So they didn't give a damn about no incest between black people. They said, you got to get out there and make me some money. Make me a new child. I want a strong one that I could put in the NBA or that I could put in the NFL. That's exactly what these white devils was going for. You know what I'm saying? So we got to think that and take that in consideration. But it's just so crazy how we fight for some things and then we get a little bit of freedom or whatever, and now we don't know how to act. And now Janelle Monáe's having this sexual revolution that everybody wants to say. But how come when everybody is body positive, right? That's the term that they use. She's body positive. She got a new music video out where basically the video was rated R. You can't play the video on TV because she's showing ass cheeks and she got on wet t-shirt with no bra. And there's no men in the video at all. It's all women and they all gyrating next to each other. It's basically a PG sex party with only women. And this is her sexual revolution coming out. And people are supporting it. But if everybody is trying to say, oh, I'm having my moment where now I'm body positive. I shamed my body for so long. I covered my body up. I was depressed and sad about how my body looked. And now I'm conscious and I appreciate my body. If now you body positive, how come everybody that's body positive got to be naked? That's what I don't get. Why I'm waiting for somebody to come out and be like, yo, I'm body positive. I got this nice a shirt right here, this shirt, and it's showing my shape, it's showing my figure and my body. I got the pants on with the long leg pants, or not, even if it's just like something fitted, I take that. You got on a tight piece of clothing on you. But everybody that becomes body positive always ends up being naked. Why is that? Because it's not really about body positivity. It's really about people and their ego, and not only ego, but low self-esteem, trying to overcompensate for something. And they feel like, oh, I never got attention before. So now the only way I'm gonna get attention is to draw attention by just showing you everything that I got. It's really sad and it's depressing when we look at hindsight to these videos, when we talk about how they really subjected us to these sexual assaults. And it's still happening to this day. But now it's just like on the plantation, the slave master, he whipped us, mentally whipped us, physically whipped us. And then he got a black person to do it. Then he got one of us to whip ourselves. Then he got some of us that when it was time to run away and leave the plantation, we'd say, I ain't running nowhere. I'm running right back to the house to snitch and tell that y'all running. So now in our mind, we doing it to ourselves now. So now we slave masters to our own slavery. But now that's what they do. So they work us so hard that now we working for them. And that's exactly what's happening right now with Janelle Monáe and a lot of our other sisters, all these women that want to say they baddies, using this term baddie. How come every baddie I see got red, different color? And I ain't knocking this, but I'm just saying, like, every baddie that I see is dressed sexually, over-sexualized, you know what I'm saying? Crazy accessories, all over the top on the opposite left end of the extremism. You know, like, it's to this day, it's like we really can't get it together. And it's just sad because not enough of us know our history. That's why we repeating these acts, you know, and it reminds me of Sarah Bartman. You know what I'm saying? Who was one of the first very popularized black women to be subjected to that, put in a goddamn circus show just because of her figure. Well, maybe Lizzo and Megan Thee Stallion probably got the same figure as her, but they doing it to themselves. It's a modern day Sarah Bartman. You know, it's really sad to see, and I just really hope that some of our people will wake up, because it's very distasteful. You know what I'm saying? It's distasteful, especially to the children and the next generation, because ain't even no clothes being worn no more. So what the next generation gonna do? How they can't do the same thing. They gotta one up y'all. So what they gonna do now? I don't see how it's no more clothes to be taken off. So what is the next generation gonna do? So we gotta take this and put it in the right direction, because I'm scared to see what's gonna happen next after this. You know what I'm saying? At the rate that this stuff is happening in the schools, in the school system, And we know that younger and younger, these kids, as they get 10 years old now, they getting cell phones. Picture me, imagine me have a cell phone when I was 10 years old. The things these kids have access to now on their cell phone to see all of this stuff. So when we say, oh, Ashe, when people say Ashe, why you bugging? Let her live. Let her do her thing. She's free. She's having her revolution and things of that nature. Well, all of this stuff is easily able to be pulled up with one wave of the finger on a cell phone. You think our kids ain't looking at that? You think the children ain't watching that? You know what I'm saying? And this is something that we add into our history as well. Because now when the next generations of children go back to look at the times that we living in, all they gonna see in is twerking. All they gonna see in is people wearing naked stuff. Can we at least balance this out? Because I don't see any more Felicia Rashads. I don't see any more Claire Huxtables. You know what I'm saying? I don't see no more Betty Shabbat. I don't see no more so on and so forth. Even nowadays, like, listen, Erykah Badu, I can't even rock with her no more. But at least back in the day, she had stood for something. She had an image that she was like conscious or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But we don't even have those anymore. Do we even have any people that's coming up on a conscious level that are entertainers and musicians and things of that nature? But this is our culture, and this is the direction that our culture is going. Worse and worse down the goddamn gutter, family. So we got to get it together in this video. I see we got a couple more minutes left in the video. So I don't know if you want to go back into it and share some more before we get out of here.
Yeah, let's finish this off and deal with it, and we'll close out.
These women, known as fancy girls, were often the daughters of mixed-race slaves and were sold at auction for exorbitant prices. They were then forced into sexual relationships with white plantation owners and their male guests, and their offspring were often sold back into the slave trade. In addition to the fancy trade, there were also reports of forced sexual relationships between white plantation owners and their former female slaves. This was made easier by the fact that many former slaves continued to live and work on the same plantations where they had been enslaved, and were often still subjected to the same abusive treatment. Fact number 10. Slave breeding and sex farms were often defended by slave owners and supporters of slavery. Despite the horrific and exploitative nature of slave breeding and sex farms, many slave owners and supporters of slavery defended the practice as necessary for the economic prosperity of the American South. They argued that the breeding of enslaved people was an important source of labor for the plantation economy, and that without it, the region would suffer economically. For example, in his 1857 book, The Impending Crisis of the South, Southern writer and politician Hinton Rowan Helper defended the practice of slave breeding as a necessary economic strategy. He wrote that, "The raising of Negroes for the Southern market has been carried on to a considerable extent, and that it has proved to be a lucrative and profitable business." Similarly, in a speech delivered in 1850, U.S. Senator James Henry Hammond of South Carolina defended the practice of slave breeding as necessary for the economic success of the Southern states. He argued that the breeding of enslaved people was a more cost-effective way of acquiring labor than importing new slaves from Africa or purchasing them from other regions. These justifications for slave breeding and sex farms highlight the deep-seated racism and economic interests that underpin the institution of slavery. Rather than acknowledging the inhumane and exploitative nature of the practice, slave owners and their supporters saw enslaved people solely as a source of labor, without regard for their basic human rights and dignity. Furthermore, these justifications ignore the fact that enslaved people were not merely property or commodities, but were human beings with families, cultures, and histories. By treating enslaved people solely as sources of labor, slave owners and supporters of slavery perpetuated a system of exploitation and dehumanization that continues to have lasting impacts on American society. While it may be difficult to confront the reality of what happened on sex farms during slavery, it's important that we acknowledge and remember these atrocities in order to fully understand the impact that slavery has had on American society. The practice of slave breeding was not only inhumane but also dehumanizing, as it reduced human beings to nothing more than commodities to be bought, sold, and traded. The evidence of this practice is overwhelming. And it is important to learn from this dark chapter in history. By acknowledging the deep-seated racism and exploitation that underpinned these practices and working to dismantle the systems of inequality and injustice that continue to affect Black Americans, we can begin to create a more just and equitable society for all. Thanks for watching.
Again, family, you can follow Black Journals on YouTube. Like and subscribe their channel. They have some great pieces on there. Definitely a great educational channel. But again, when you have these folks who say, you know, you don't need reparations, forget about it. It's in the past. It's not in the past. That pathology is passed down. It's not in the past. We're still dealing with it. When they say it's a federal government problem, no, it's not. Started with the colonies. Those colonies turned into states. Remember a few weeks ago, we talked about the New York kidnapping clubs, the Boston kidnapping clubs, kidnapping free Black women and breeding them. So when they say you don't deserve reparations, forget about it, it's in the past. The past is not connected to the present. The present is not connected to the future when all three take place at the same time, simultaneously.
Yep.
How can you forget and let it go? So again, we got to be Black first. It got to be about us. Yes, people are suffering all around the globe. But if we don't fight for us, if not now, then when? If not us, then who? Who? Because again, we don't got no magic pill to say we gonna stay here forever. I got to deal with Birdie Lee. I got to deal with my grandmother, my great-grandmother, their great-grandmothers when we cross over. You got to give an answer for that. Could you say, well, you know what, Nana? I sided with the system that agreed slavery was good business. I became a Catholic. I became a Democrat. The party that put the stamp on enslavement. How do you answer for these things? I'm just saying. My brother and sister, we winding down. Sorry, Brother Black has some technical difficulties. Again, Brother Razakhan will call in next week because he is unable to use this platform that we have. So he'll be calling in next week because we got to get the 411 and what's happening with our brother Mumia. And when I had a conversation with Brother Razakhan, with him and Sister Pam, shout out to Pam Africa when they were here, I got an earful of what's really going on. And so we'll definitely have Brother Razakhan call in next week and give us an update. Sister Marcia, your final thoughts and comments on this exclusive breakdown of history of Black women during Mother's Day.
Yes, our foremothers struggled and did so much for us, and we are not taking enough accountability and responsibility for the legacy that they have left for us. We are their children, and we somehow must do better. We must find a way. And to Ashe, her sexual exploitation of Janelle Monáe, she calls herself a pansexual, meaning she can go anywhere whenever she wants to go, just flipping the pan like pancakes. And our foremothers were in a position where they didn't have the ability to be appreciated in love with their mates. Their mates were stolen from them, taken from them, and so was their children. We need to understand ourselves a little bit better so we can be better servants to our communities. We are here to serve. We have nothing else to do. Any children we have, any grandchildren, any neighbors' children, we are here to serve. And it is a daunting task when everyone finds that it's easier to be part of the system than it's easier to be part of the revolution. There is no individual revolution. There is a political revolution for African people around the world. We must learn how to manage ourselves. We must do better, not for ourselves, because remember, I always say this, we come back. We come back. There's going to be a Sister Keisha in 100 years. And she's going to have dreams and remember. And if you didn't do her right, she's going to come knocking on people's door 100 years from now. So let's start working on doing right now. It is our responsibility. We are servants of this planet. We are the first creators of everyone. We are it. And if we don't control it, manage it, what are we going to do? Because we're coming back. And what are we going to come back to? Hell? We're already in hell, brothers and sisters. Let's get out of it. Thank you, sister, for having me on Third Black Talk again. I appreciate it. Ashe. Thanks for the conversation.
My brother Ashe SJ, the fire god. Your final thoughts and comments.
Yeah, those are wise words from my sister, man. I think she made me think of like the lens that you view life through. You know what I'm saying? When you talk about easy, like what's easy? What's your definition of easy? That's what we got to figure out. You know what I'm saying? Is it easy to work in the system, or is it easy for the revolution? Well, what's easy to you? You know what I'm saying? Because some people could say like easy to work in the system is easy, but people like us, we see that as hard as hell. You know what I'm saying? We see that as the worst thing we'd ever want to do, you know? So, and I don't like things that's easy anyway, because ain't no growth in that, ain't no challenge in it. You know, that's why I go against the grain. But yeah, look at the lens on things and flip it. Like how you looking at what's easy? What's easy for you? Is it easy for you to sit back and be submissive? If that means no drama and no problem and no stress, you just be submissive and that's how you go about your day. Is it easy to walk with your head down all the time? Don't look nobody in the eye. Don't hold your head up with pride and integrity, and morals and principles. Is it easy to be quiet so you don't have to have an argument? Or is it easier for you to say the right thing and speak truth so you can go home and go to sleep at night and lay down and go to rest in peace and meet the ancestors honorably? Is that easier? Or is it easy to just shut up and let people walk all over you? So what's your definition of easy? Next week, Keisha, we definitely got to go into this Daniel Penny thing. Yo, they said that this dude, like a day or two after, they said he racked up right now. Last time I checked, I think it was yesterday, they said he got $2.6 million. $2.6 million in fundraising. They said Kid Rock, the celebrity rock star, Kid Rock, pledged $5,000 publicly. So he got white celebrities pledging money to him, fundraising for him. Then another, I think the highest person was $20,000. It was some white far right media outlet, some guy, Tim Pool. I'm not familiar with his word. His name is Tim Pool. And then a politician, actually a president.
Ron DeSantis.
No. Actually, the one that I saw was a dude, a presidential candidate for the Republican Party. He's gonna run for presidency right now. His name is Vivek Shawaski or something like that. His first name is Vivek, but he's gonna run for president under the Republican Party. He donated $10K to this. So this thing is not even just about the incident, but it's political. It's politics, family. You got the race card, you got the left versus right, the Democrats versus Republicans. There's so many different layers to this. But at the end of the day, just like these videos say, we less than humans, 3/5 of human beings, right? Because it's not even about Neely, you know what I'm saying? They already condemned his ass when they saw his criminal record. So it ain't about him no more, but they still utilizing this. So after he dead, they still utilizing him. They still put him to work. You see how that is? So they don't care about us. So we got to discuss that next week. All of these people donating and Why we can't fundraise and do things the same way? We can, but we don't have the urgency to fundraise. I wish I could raise $1 million in a day or two. What? The only people that seem like they could do it is Black Lives Matter. And guess what? You can't count them because they ain't for us. Matter of fact, I think I saw a Black Lives Matter flag because the funeral is tomorrow, right? Or today. It's tomorrow. I think it's in Harlem tomorrow. Yeah, it's in the funeral for Neely, the brother they choked out on the train, is tomorrow in Harlem. I think I saw it on Adam Clayton Powell, something like that. One of them churches in Harlem. And I saw a Black Lives Matter flag right there. So you already know what this is about. So when you see Black Lives Matter, you know it's going left because now it's about politics. Now they're going to use this in the presidential candidate, in the debates now. You know what I'm saying? Clean up the city. Support the veterans. That's what this is about now. So it ain't about black people. So just keep your ear to the street, family. Go ahead. You on mute.
But tomorrow's Malcolm Day, and Harlem has this whole shut them down. So, like Keisha says, connect the dots because they're trying to omit Malcolm out of all of this conversation. This is the day that our people commemorate Malcolm, and we shut down everything in Harlem. So it's very interesting. Thanks for bringing that to light. If it's happening tomorrow.
Well, that's a fact. But anyway, till next week, family. It's your brother Ashe SJ signing out. Always remember, true courage is knowing how to suffer. The battlefield is where you stand. Sister Keisha.
Again, family, remember, they've always taken care of their own. This is nothing new. If you remember when our 4 sisters was bombed in the church in Alabama, how the money was raised for the killers. For the killers. Here we go. Check this out before we close out. We got to connect these dots.
Warning to get out of the Ku Klux Klan now and return to a decent society before it is too late.
But the Invisible Empire was indifferent to such threats. At their trial, Vara Liuzzo's murderers got away with it. The all-white jury refused to convict them.
Now present Mr. W.O. Eaton, Mr. Eugene Thomas, and the boy who stood under the battle guns, Colin Leroy Wilkins.
As usual, the Klan celebrated the 3 men as heroes. They even signed autographs. A collection was set up to pay their legal fees.
Okay? A collection set up to pay their legal fees.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on this.
This is the history. This is the history. What the fundraising that's going on for Daniel Penny, the fundraiser that went on for Darren Wilson, the fundraising that went on for George Zimmerman.
Oh, yeah.
This is their history. They're going to take care of their race soldiers.
Yeah.
But when it comes to ours, we forget. This past week, I was fortunate enough to be on a Zoom broadcast, thanks to Dr. Fillet, with Ramona Africa. Mother's Day, 1981, when they dropped a bomb on black mothers in Philadelphia. Connect the dots, family. Connect the dots. We don't play about it over here on Thorough Black Talk. We serious about it. We're going to connect these dots for you. But again, as we normally do, we got to have a throwback. Brother Ashe, follow Solid African on YouTube and Facebook. Brother Ashe, are they bringing back Tamma Fridays?
Yeah, it's coming back.
Got the brother John May in the building. Powerful brother, man. Ashe all day. How you doing? Now listen. This is reminding me of like Dance Africa with Memorial Day Saturday, and everybody came outside and knew it was okay to be outside.
Dance Africa coming through.
So you never know when I'm gonna pull out the crates. That's a throwback.
Dance
Brother
Africa
Ashe.
coming up too. Yeah, I'm excited to see
Yes.
all our people out there for Dance Africa.
Memorial Day weekend coming up next week. Get ready for Dance Africa. Everybody gonna be outside. I think Sister Marie Raymond will be in New York too. So I gotta reach out to her because she want to meet up with us, Brother Ashe. So we out there in Dance Africa, Sister Marcia. We can definitely meet up with some of our viewers. Y'all can meet us out there, vibe with us, rock out with us. And again, follow Sada African on YouTube and Facebook. You never know who Ashe gonna be interviewing this summer. You never know what he gonna pull out the crates. You want to be abreast and be abreast of everything that's happening. So again, family, we truly appreciate each and every one of you for joining us each and every Thursday. Share this with somebody. Watch it with your family. Connect the dots. Study pathology. And keep it black. And always keep it thorough. We out, y'all. Good night.